Good morning. We had completed till verse 13, chapter 3 of the Bhagavad Gita. So we will be doing from 14 onwards, but just a small recap of what we have done previously up to verse 13. Verse 12-13 was very important verse. It says that when you do something, whatever action that you do in this world, first you have to offer it to the deities or the divinities, which means you have to give it as an offering. What you get back is the prasad. That means whatever that you do, first offer it to God. What comes back to us is the prasad. When you get the prasad, this prasad has no karma or sin attached to it. And this is a reason why when we do something, when we eat food, this food which you eat, you first offer it to God. When you offer it to God, and you say all the Christians and all, they say something which is called the grace before meals. So when you offer it to the Lord, it becomes an offering to God. And what comes back is called the prasada. So whether you are doing any action for that matter, any action whatsoever, first offer it to God. I am talking of the good actions, don't offer the bad ones. So a very funny incident was there when one lady, I had gone to a place where they were all sitting at a restaurant, and this lady was drinking wine or maybe I don't know whether it was wine or some beer or something like that. So she looks at me and she says, "Guruji, you don't eat anything, you don't drink anything." This was evening time. So, but I want to make, that cheers. I want to say cheers to you. And she lifted her glass. I had a water glass in front of me and I said, "Okay, cheers to you." And she drank. After she had finished the meal, she asked me this question, "Guruji, isn't it important that you should have stopped me from drinking this? Because this is intoxicant and you as a guru should have stopped me from drinking this liquor or wine or whatever." I said, "No, it is not required by me to stop you, because I am not in this world to stop people. If they want to commit sin, that is their problem. Some people want to commit sin right in front of my eyes. They are free to do so. The Guru's job is not to stop them." So she said that, "But you should have stopped me." I said, "It is not necessary, because you see, when you do something like this which is evil in nature, and you are telling me about it, my universe will make you stop that thing on its own. I don't have to put my finger to it. So, naturally now she doesn't have to drink." So, this is not a done thing. So, when you give something to the Lord, whenever you offer, it's an offering. What comes back to you is a prasad. It comes free from all karmas and sin. Okay? So, this is what we had learnt yesterday. So, today we are going to start from verse 14 onwards. So, we are doing chapter 3, verse 14-15, because these verses are joined. All beings are evolved from food. Production of food is dependent on rain. Rain ensues from sacrifice, and sacrifice is rooted in prescribed action. Know that prescribed action has its origin in the Vedas, and the Vedas proceed from the indestructible God. Hence, all pervading infinite is always present in sacrifice. So, everything comes from God. I think it's a very, very regular statement that you know about. We all know everything comes from God. So I am starting in the reverse direction. So whatever that comes from God has been given to us by God Himself. So when He created this world, when He created this sun, moon, stars or whatever, then He created this whole universe, the atmosphere, the plants in it, you name it, the mountains, the valleys, the rivers, everything that is there, the fruits, the flowers, the vegetables, everything. Then He put animals and man. Everything has been created by the Divine Himself. Okay? So when everything has been created by the Divine, do you think the Divine is not present in it? The Divine is present in it. One example I will give you. This example was given by Swami Vivekananda. When a king of a particular kingdom had invited Vivekananda to his palace, and at that time he said that why is it that people have to go to the temple to pray? If God is everywhere, they should pray everywhere. So why only the temple? So Vivekananda said, I'll give you the answer. And these two, the king and Vivekananda, were walking down the corridor. So he suddenly called the soldier from there and he said, come here. The soldier came and asked, yes sir, what can I do for you? He says, this is the picture of the king's father. Can you pull it down? So he looked at the king. The soldier looked at the king. The king said, yes, if Vivekananda ji is saying that you have to remove the thing from there, please remove it out. So he removed it. Then he said, put it on the ground. So he put it on the ground. Now I am going to tell you to stamp it with your foot. So the soldier was afraid. How can he stamp that picture? So he is looking at the king. The king said, how can he do that? So Vivekananda then asked him the question, is your father in this picture? No, it's only his image. And yet you feel that somebody should not stamp it. In the same way, God may be everywhere, but He is in that image in the temple. That is why people go to the temple to visit the temple. So everything has been created by God. There are certain places where God is predominant. He's got more power in some and zero power in some. How it happens also we will come to know. All beings have evolved from food. It's an understood fact. We are human beings. We have a food body. This is all food body. Everything that you see, touch, feel is a food body. So everything has come from food itself. The production of food is dependent on the rain. So one thing is dependent on the other thing. So if there is no rain, what happens? The food cannot be produced. It's very simple, isn't it? So where do the rains come from? Now the word sacrifice over here is very strange. Let me give it an understanding. People always think in today's day and age that you do need to do something which is called a yagya. So they create that yagya. They will put all the things in it. and they will practice what is written, and they expect the rain god to send rain. This is not the sacrifice we are talking about. That is a literal way of looking at it. The real way of looking at it is we have to follow the teachings. These are there in the form of kodais. Why do the rains come? The rains come because the sun shines. Why does the sun shine? It is written in the Vedas as well as in this scripture as well. The sun shines because of fear of the Lord. These are very coded verses. So, the sun shines because of the fear of the Lord. The fear of the Lord is a very funny word over here. God is not supposedly fearful. God is like a principal of the school, at least in India. I don't know abroad. In India, when there is noise in the corridor, or when some classes are really very noisy, and the principal starts walking down the corridor, the moment the principal walks, everybody becomes silent. We call it the fear of the principal. Is the principal maybe not fearful, he may be a very mild-mannered person, but just the designation itself creates that power. The same thing goes for the Lord, and the same thing goes for the Guru as well. People are afraid in this manner, not because they want to offend him, or not because he is very angry person or something like that. No. It is better to be fearful. You have to do your job in that manner, silently, swiftly, the way it is programmed to do. So the sun shines because of fear, they say, of the Lord. Likewise, it heats up the water. Remember, heating up the water. Where is the water? The water is in a pond, a lake, a sea, an ocean, or wherever. So when the Lord has given instructions to the sun to shine forth, which is there in the Vedas, he shines brightly into that lake, pond, sea, whatever. That is a kund. That is a sacrificial pit. So when the sun shines, which is called the burning. Now can you link all the words? The burning of the wood is said over there, where they do it in a sacrificial pit. They have to burn the wood. Here, the burning is because of the sun. It burns the water starts evaporating. Whatever evaporates up in the sky is because of the sacrifice. Same thing, same logic please apply in everything that happens. Now the water has evaporated up in the sky. When it goes into the sky, what happens? There is rumbling between the two clouds. Again there is a friction. In the friction is created the lightning and thunder. Again another sacrifice happens on top. So the clouds also perform these sacrifices. So when the clouds, when they bring rain to earth, the earth is already hot. It's after the sun has heated the earth, when the rain falls on the earth, it cools down. So this is also a sacrifice. The water enters the field, the kund again, and it gives food, the water itself, to the grains. The grains, they are also performing a sacrifice. So at every stage, if you see, there is a sacrifice that happens. We do not consider it as a sacrifice. And at every stage, it is the fear of God itself which creates this. So please remember this, that if you are not fearful of God, you are not going to do anything in life. If your Guruji is not a strict person, or if he is not going to say, do this or do that, you are anyway not going to do it. Because you do not fear your Guru. You do not fear God. When you don't fear God, you can go and say whatever you feel like. People have said that. They stand in front of a temple or a church or something like that, and they will shout at it. They are not fearful. They are not afraid of what is going to be there in store for them. So this is the part which we need to understand. So from rain ensues sacrifice. Everywhere the sacrifice is written. And sacrifice is rooted in prescribed action. The action is prescribed. There is a strict action prescribed. Never go against that prescription. Do you understand? There is a prescription. The prescription is time bound. Have you noticed it? Everything is time bound. If the sun doesn't shine in time, there will be no rain. If the rain doesn't fall on the earth in time, the whole place is going to become dry. If the whole place is dry, there will be no food grains to eat. So everything has to be done in the respective time. If nothing is working in the respective time, then there can be a problem. Think about it. It is very important for us to know that even in our daily life, why do people rush to work? Why do people rush their children to school in time? You see, there are lots of people who will ensure that their children reach their school in time. But for them, they don't care about their own life, so they will do whatever they feel like. Work from home, do whatever they feel like. No. The Lord has prescribed this in the Vedas. He is saying this. All prescribed action has origin in the Vedas. If you do not perform the prescribed action, the way it is mentioned, the way it is written in the Vedas, you are committing the gravest of the sin. Understood? So, all these actions have to be performed in a particular way, and they have been given by the Lord Himself, because the Vedas have come from the mouth of the Lord, and that is why they are important. In all this is the Divine Lord. Where does the Divine Lord not come into the picture? When you reject Him. When you say that there are no Vedas, when you say I don't care, when you say that God doesn't exist, the atheist people are there. They behave exactly like this. They believe that a man and a woman can create children. No. Without the sanction of the Lord, nothing can happen. So that is why it is all written in the Vedas. Now you may wonder, why is he going round and round? You see, the question is very clear. Why is Krishna trying to explain this in a different manner? The answer is this. The Bhagavad Gita has answers to everything, not just one object. So if you apply this in your life, this particular verse in your life, you will profit from it. But if you go against this verse, then things are not going to work in your direction. action needs to be performed as per the scriptures prescribed by the Lord. When you perform the actions as prescribed by the Lord in a systematic manner, in time, the results are going to be free from karma. The previous verse, if you remember, Shri Krishna is explaining to Arjuna, if you use your mind, then it is karma. If you do the action which I have told you to do, without using your mind, because the action needs to be done, there is no karma involved. Karma means anything that you think and do, where a contemplation happens and then you get a resultant. And that is based on your judgment. Anything that is judged and done, that is karmic action. If your guru says, gurus are very strange guys. Okay? The guru has a very funny way of talking. He will say that the sun rises in the east. And one day he will say the sun rises in the west. And you will say, Guruji, you are wrong. The sun doesn't rise in the west. It rises in the east. So you try to correct him. The strange part about this is, whether he says it rises in the west or north or south, just agree with him. Don't argue with him. The reason why you should not argue is because he is deliberately doing it. He is not telling you that the sun is rising from the north or south or west. What he is going to do is test whether you are succeeding in keeping your mouth shut. Don't ask him and don't try to correct or say something which is, you don't know this answer. Don't say these words. So always remember this. Just keep quiet. What is he testing? He is testing whether you have placidity of the mind or no. Whether you are silent or no. When there is a placidity of mind, contemplation, just now, you remember my words which I said to you 2 minutes ago? Judgment doesn't happen. So when you say to your guru, Guruji, you are wrong, the sun rises in the west, he is not saying anything. He knows very well that the sun rises in the east, not that he doesn't know. Because it is commonsensical. But he is trying to understand whether you have got provoked by it, whether your mind is reacting to it, and if your mind is reacting to it, you have already made judgments that Guruji, you are wrong, the sun rises in the west. You have raised doubts. So lot of judgment which your mind has done, whereas silence is golden. You don't need to correct him. He is only looking at you to find out whether are you going to be silent or not. Whether your mind is talking or not. If your mind talks, you have committed a sin. So that is the reason why, that is exactly why he is trying to find out. It's a deliberate action. Okay? So now we go to the next verse. We are doing Bhagavad Gita chapter 3 verse 16. Arjuna, he who does not follow the wheels of creation, thus set going in the world, that is, does not perform his duties, leads a sensual life, he lives in vain. Do you know how dangerous this verse is? It's a verse which will tell you how many more lifetimes you have to come back to earth. It is rebirth, chain of rebirths is there hidden in this verse. He says, those who do not follow the wheels of creation thus set going in the world, that is, does not perform his duties, leads a sinful and sensual life. I will take additional 5 more minutes. So, there is a prescribed action given to people by the Vedas. The scriptures have given the prescribed action. What is the action saying? Everything happens by the prescribed methodology as written in the Vedas. If someone does not follow prescribed action, then that person who is involved in a sensual life or leads a sinful life, he will live in vain. Living in vain means he is going to be born 100%, reborn again and again and again, because sins have happened. Karmic action has happened. Now here I am going to make a very, very dangerous statement. People nowadays do not follow the prescribed action. They believe that the action which is prescribed by the Lord need not be done. So some people in this world have started harvesting their eggs, keeping them in nitrogen chambers, cold storage. They are 45 and 50 years old and then they want to have children. That is not a prescribed action. And how do they want to have? In a test tube, a surrogate womb. The biggest question over here is, who is the mother? Who is the father? Who is the one who is looking after the child? I mean, exactly can you tell me how this has happened? There is no husband, there is no wife. Because even the sperm they have taken from somewhere. They believe that the best sperm in the world they have to buy from somewhere, and they go and buy, and they go in a hospital, and in a test tube they are creating the babies and they are planting it in some womb, and this lady is giving birth and the child is getting adopted by somebody else. How strange is this action? So who is the mother? Who is the father? Where is the womb? Who is this thing who is going to... I mean, can you see the confusion in this whole thing? Today what has happened is the same thing. Today people do not know their gender as well. So L, G, B, T, Q, A, B, C, D, I don't know how many words they have started including today. Why? Because these changes in this entire scripture has come about. The structure has changed, not the scripture, the structure has changed in such a manner that people have remarried, married 100 times, they don't even know whom they are having an affair with. There is no integrity in relationships. Nothing is straightforward. The genetic structure has gone for a toss. This I am talking of humans only. Let us talk about the plants. So did you see? That is why new diseases have started coming. The child may be born autistic. Nobody can guarantee anything. One day I will take a class on this subject. But that is separate. But now let me come back to even the structure which is very important to us. The food. Remember we have started this verse with the food. Now, way back in 60s and 70s, there were some scientists who said that we have to do some changes in the genetic structure of all the food grains. And they started effecting change in that. The tomatoes became red, they had more shelf life. The rice, the wheat, and all other food grains, they destroyed the third and the fourth generation which can come out of it. So the second generation is all that will happen. Okay? So the first generation is the parent, second generation is the child. And there are grandparents. Grandparents are different. So this goes even for the food grains, it goes for the chickens and all the poultry and every other thing that is there in the world. Which is food. Remember, it is all about food. So what they did many years ago, they changed the genetic structure of these whole plants, the way they are brought out. Now, because you have changed the genetic structure, you have to change the way of planting them. You have to change the way how they have to be fed also. The plants have to be fed, So nutrients, and then because they have specific nutrients, they will grow in a certain manner, and then pesticides, because some pesticides gets attracted to it. And then because of the genetic changes that have happened over there over the period of time, today the farmer cannot reproduce the grains which he has sowed in his field. So suppose you are a farmer, you have some grains and you have sowed them in the field. So suppose you have 10 bags of grains, 9 bags you can finish of yourself or go to the market and sell it. 1 bag you keep it as a seed. Now this seed, second generation, the third generation has been destroyed. So they cannot produce plants next year. And even if they produce, they will not give the yield. So the farmer is forced to go out in the market and buy the seeds from the seed manufacturing unit, who has gone and buggered the entire genetic structure of the plant. The same thing has happened with poultry and various other creatures. When you are eating everything which is genetically modified, you yourself, whether you are eating the cereals, whether you are eating the food grains, whether you are eating the oil that is there, the ghee, the butter, the everything in your plate which you are consuming as food has been modified. Now you tell me, if everything is modified and it is not come from the way it is prescribed in the scriptures, what is going to happen? Your own genetic structure has undergone changes. You may not even realize this. Your genetic structure has undergone a massive change. Because you are eating everything which is genetically modified stuff. Even the water that you drink, even the salt that you eat, even the sugar that is there in your plate, wherever, whatever that you are doing, is modified to the core. Nobody knows. Even if it is organic written on top, please don't go by the word organic, because people get misled by the word organic. See, even the organic plants, when they are grown, or hydroponics and all these different methodologies that are used, they are also contaminated, because they also have to give them all the food and the pesticides and everything which is not correct. So none of these methodologies which were given by God in the beginning of time, saying that you use this, people are trying to improve. It is not improvement. It is destruction of your current structure. This food which you eat is responsible for your food body, isn't it? Now think whatever I have said. See what is there in your plate. If in your plate the rice you are eating is genetically modified, the dal you are having is genetically modified, the vegetables that you are eating are modified, the tomatoes, the cucumber, you name it, every plant including the brinjal means the eggplant, everything is modified. And you buy the seeds from the market if you are a farmer. And whatever seeds that you buy, they can only give you one generation. That is, what is there in front is all that it will give you. The same thing with the chicken. If you have a chicken farm, it's the same thing. Same thing with other animals as well. So here he says, if someone does not follow the prescribed norms, I've given you two examples. One is the human example and the second one is the food example. Follow it very carefully. Arjuna, he who does not follow the wheels of creation, thus set going in the world, that is, does not perform his duties the way they are prescribed. Your duties have to be performed the way it is prescribed, not your own thinking. So if you use your mind in doing your duties, then it is wrong. Leads a sinful and a sensual life. So the person leads a sinful and a sensual life. He lives in vain. Then his life is worthless. So all this is there. So I will stop over here.